We finally got a decent chunk of environment art into the game. This has been in the works for some time. It took a lot of experimentation, and we landed on this stylized, hand-drawn, kinda cartoony look, which I personally really love. Hopefully this will make these videos just that much more pleasant for you guys to watch, because I know that looking at half-baked prototype levels for long periods can get pretty stale. I am particularly happy with the parallax effect. We achieved this in an earlier prototype video, but we weren't big fans of the colors or the textured art or the mood that the art set. It was pretty minimal, but it was something. But now I feel like everything really matches. It's much more cohesive, and we used many more layers in the background to really give that nice sense of depth. We achieved this by using a perspective camera and just layering things on the Z-axis like this. Now, I want to shift to the other main topic for this video, which is the blessing system.
You can essentially think of it like a very simplified skill tree. What's going to happen is, this is a Metroidvania after all, so you're going to go through the world, and as you find new power-ups, a new category is going to get added into your blessing system. Within each of those categories, there are going to be multiple blessings that you can equip. Each one of those blessings is going to have a certain rune cost associated with it. So each one of these blessings is going to give O2 some sort of modifier or power up or upgrade. So let's get to work.
Okay, so here it is in engine, and I'm actually really happy with how this turned out. You can see the available number of runes that you have to spend over here. You've got your different categories that you can scroll through over here. Depending on which one you go into, the cursor now automatically goes down here, and you can now select which blessing you want to equip. This works with a mouse and gamepad, by the way, and it took a little bit of doing to get it working with the gamepad, so I'm pretty proud of that. Each one of these categories only has one blessing coded into the game right now, and I think that's going to be how it stays until we're moving past the phase of getting the demo done. I'm not planning on having all of these blessings available within the demo because I want to leave some things as a surprise for you guys. Eventually I'm going to have to return to this and recode a whole lot more blessings into the game for the commercial version, but right now we're pushing to get the demo done, so I'm only doing one blessing per category. But you are able to equip them, and you can see that when I equip it, it goes down here to currently equipped, and the number of runes that it costs took away from here, so now we have 0 available runes. And if you want to unequip, you just go back down there and unequip it just like that. Because I already went through and just created this whole UI screen, I went ahead and created blank ones as well that you can scroll through, because eventually I'm going to have an inventory that I'm going to need to make. That at least I've got the UI screen for it now. Same with a map, definitely going to need a map. This is a Metroidvania, we'll need a good one of those up and running, so at least I've got the space for it now. And then the journal, and what'll eventually go in here is, as you go through the world and you pick up little bits of lore and story, they will get stored in your journal here so that you can view them later on if that's what you want to do. Just a little sidebar here, guys. I've been watching other devloggers for years, and I know that generally what you end up seeing is people putting their best face on for the camera, right? Every day always looks super productive. Motivation levels always seem really high. At least that's always how it looked to me personally, and it gave me, as a viewer at the time, this false sense of what people's everyday life was actually like as a developer. But I'll be real with you guys, this honestly, it wasn't the most productive 2 weeks that I have ever had personally. I took some time off, I cut a few work days short, my motivation levels were a little bit low. Heavy UI work really is not my favorite thing in the world, and I had a more difficult week in my personal life, and I didn't get as much done as I would have liked. And that's okay, it happens. You have high points and you have low points. This is just a part of the process, and I don't want to sit here and pretend that that's not real and that's not a thing, because that's not true. But with all of that said, I am very, very proud of the end result of what you're seeing here. It literally took me a week just to get the UI working, like before the UI even actually does anything, just no blessings coded. You could just interact with the buttons and all of the sprites and rune costs and descriptions and all of that good stuff updated properly, but it didn't actually do anything. That part took me about a week. The following week, however, was much better. I had 7 abilities or blessings that I wanted to code in, and I just bashed them out one by one, starting with the Lunos Attract blessing, which makes Lunos, our game's currency, fly towards you if it's within a certain distance from the player. And you can see the end result here. Normally, the Lunos just sits on the ground and will get collected when you run into it. Obviously, once you equip the blessing, it'll fly towards you and it will ignore any walls or obstacles, and it's just going to fly straight through them to get to you. Once the foundation for everything was set up, the actual code for most of these blessings was pretty simple. Now, that was by design, to be fair, since we're really laser focused on getting this demo done by July. We're trying to work as efficiently as possible. I have a very long list of blessings that I would like to add to the game, but I chose the easiest ones to code for the sake of saving time for the demo. You can see the end result here for the attack speed blessing, normal attack speed before the blessing is equipped, and the attack speed after equipping the blessing. This one might need some adjusting, as I'm sure it's a little bit overpowered at the moment. And by the way, I'm going to be sure to come up with some more interesting names and descriptions for the blessings down the road. This is just the first iteration of that. I really just wanted it in there and to get it working. Speaking of which, I would love to hear any ideas that you might have for a blessing that could be added into the game. Leave a comment down below. Let me know your ideas. I read every comment that I get, so I will consider it if it's something that I really like. Next, blessing. Here you can see that normally when you heal, you only heal for 2 health beads. It used to be 3 by default, but we changed it. So the baseline amount is now 2, but after equipping this blessing, you can heal for 3 instead. Next, blessing. The dash took a little bit more work because of how I set up the state machine for my player, which controls which state he's in, walking, dashing, etc., etc. There used to be a delay between state transitions where the player would keep on dashing just for 3 frames while his animation for exiting the dash was playing, and he would continue dashing during those 3 frames. And this will not work for this because I want to increase the speed of the dash without affecting the distance that you travel, and those extra 3 frames with the travel time in there was messing that up. I just kind of cut those 3 frames out for now, which is obviously not an optimal solution. He's missing an animation transition now, so I will have to revisit that sometime soon. But you can see it now. I expect this will have combat implications since it doesn't really affect exploration all that much. It does feel really good to use though. It's pretty fun. You can see the normal speed of the dash and then the speed after equipping the blessing. Next blessing. This is one of my favorites. I accidentally damage myself a lot while using telekinesis.
Damage myself a lot while using telekinesis.
You take damage when enemies contact you, when you're flinging them all over the screen. It's really easy to accidentally make them bump into you. This next blessing disables contact damage on enemies that you are using telekinesis on. So you can see here, you normally do take contact damage when they hit you. And once the blessing is equipped, that doesn't happen anymore. Next blessing. I had to make one for movement speed. I had to. Sometimes it's just fun to move around a little bit faster. I added a speed multiplier to the animation as well to ensure that O2's walk animation and footstep sound effects also sync up with the increased movement speed. So you can see the move speed before the blessing and after equipping the blessing. Next blessing. So there's a small number of abilities in the game, and currently it's just the projectile shot and telekinesis. They don't use essence. They actually don't have any cost associated with them at all. What they do have is a shared cooldown. Any ability that requires you to aim in Veil of Maya has a shared cooldown. So if your aim is cooling down, you can't use the projectile shot or the telekinesis. I did this because aiming slows down time, because I wanted it to give you that extra time in really tight situations where you need to be able to aim. But this can obviously be exploited really heavily if it isn't handled correctly. So I separated the cooldown into two categories. One is just the base cooldown. It's just 1 second by default. That applies no matter what. The second is the added cooldown, and this cooldown's length depends on how long you were using the aim, and by extension also slowing down time. So you're encouraged to aim and use the ability as quickly as you can so that the cooldown isn't as long. And this blessing here only affects the base cooldown. So you can see the base cooldown after you stop aiming, the light blue color here. And now you can see it's been shortened significantly. And finally, I got a comment on our last video suggesting I change how the Lunos counting works. Instead of instantly snapping to the new amounts on the UI, the suggestion was to add the number 1 by 1, and you can see that working here. The gray added Lunos counter drains into the current Lunos counter, and then I added a little pop at the end. Thank you so much for that suggestion. I really like it a lot better now. And that's all I have for you today. Over the next 2 weeks, I'm going to focus heavily on bug fixing and getting some particles and just game juice added into the game, make it feel a lot better to play and look a lot nicer as well. There is a lot to be done here, and I've put it off for far too long. But guys, thank you so much for watching. Be sure to hit that like button because it really helps with the algorithm to help other people find this channel. I really appreciate it. And if you liked the video, then I hope you'll consider subscribing. Bye.